Today on the podcast, we've got Dylan Thomas. Dill, we actually drove into the studio together. I've never had a guest who's actually driven with me to the studio to find this place. How'd you find picking me up?
Well, I had to show you off my wife's car, not my car, the Audi i30 that was courtesy of racing while we ended up with it. So, with the TCR thing with Josh Buchan.
Yep.
You know, you had him on your podcast last week. So, because of Josh, we ended up with this Hyundai i30.
Yeah.
So I had to show it off. So that's why I suggested I could pick you up on the way through.
Yeah, right. It's a pretty good car. So how did that actually all come about?
Well, we're in the market for a new car for my wife, and you look around. Obviously, being heavily involved in motorsport, watching. My wife likes little hatchbacky sort of cars and sporty sort of ones, and I've got to drive from time to time, so I wanted something a bit zippy, and watching Nathan Morgan Nathan Morgan for a long time, and watching Josh in there, and I knew Josh was associated with the Hyundai brand.
Yep.
Actually rang him up and said, hey, do you know of any cars? Because there was none available, with COVID, there was no cars. He goes, I told him what I wanted, colour, everything. And he goes, yeah, I've got one. You can have it. I went, what? And he goes, yeah, Hyundai, just loan him it to me. And I went, oh, it's all right. I don't want to take your car, bud.
Yeah.
And, so I found another one that actually had a stage 1 tune in it. So I ended up buying that one instead.
Yeah. And over the Christmas break, you're actually shouting out on social media, you'd broken your collarbone during this whole COVID breakout. How did you find out getting surgery, and how was that whole situation over the Christmas break, how chaotic Christmas was for you?
Oh, dude, that was not very well timed. We went down a Threadbow push bike riding, doing the trails, and just had this little tip over, and just landed badly, and bust my collarbone in 4 places, and my shoulder was 50 mil shorter.
Yeah, right.
So clearly not ideal, and then drove back to Sydney that night. Well, my wife drove us back to Sydney, and rocked up to the hospital the next day, which was New Year's Eve day. No surgeons around. Sat in the hospital all day, hoping to get surgery. Yeah. Then got kicked out because they weren't going to operate, 1, and 2, the COVID ward was overflowing and they needed beds. I'm like, oh crap! Now what do we do? So
was this in the Northern Beaches Hospital, or was this another hospital?
No, that was Northern Beaches Hospital. And then so the next morning, I got up. I went to North Shore, went to the Sands, and then just end up.
And your wife's driving you around, isn't she?
I got my dad to drive me around the next day. Yeah. So my wife dropped me up to Northern Beaches, and then my dad drove me around the next day. And
how's Dave? How's Dave going anyway?
Yeah, he's good. He's he hasn't been. He's been living over in Ireland for the last little bit, Ireland and Spain. So
right.
He's had about 5 or 6 trips planned to come back to Oz, and hasn't been able to get here because every time he planned it, because COVID killed it.
Yeah, right.
When COVID first came out, he was supposed to come back. I think we're going to do a race together even. Oh, no, he's sort of retired from racing. Yeah. He reckons his reflexes aren't so good no more.
He's pretty competitive, though.
He goes all right. We've stood on the podium together, so I can't hack him too much. So, at Bathurst, mind you. So, he was supposed to come out. We bought him tickets for his birthday to go take him over to, I think it was the first ever Vietnamese Formula 1.
That obviously didn't happen.
And that never happened. So, it was not really the most ideal plan. But so this is the first time he's been out since that happened, which is like 2 years ago.
Yeah, right. So can you give me a background and the listeners a background on your family and what happened, and was your parents and all that from Australia, or were they from another country like South Africa?
No. So we're all. So I was born in South Africa. My mum and dad South African. My mum and dad split up when I think I was about 2. Yep. My dad moved over here when I was about 4. I followed him over when I was about 5. So I don't know too much about South Africa. Yep. Although my mother's still over there. Yeah. She's come over, and obviously I went backwards and forwards there for a little while. So we sort of grew up with me and my father mostly. He had quite a few marriages along the way, and lots of women. Yep. So there was no real consistency there. But and I went to boarding school. I ended up going to boarding school, and so I didn't do the traditional motorsport route that most kids do. I didn't do go-karts or any of that sort of stuff. In fact, we sort of didn't really have the opportunities. Yeah. So I didn't really get into motorsport till I was about late 20s.
Yeah. Okay.
So but we always had the passion. I remember been in boarding school, and my dad would come pick me up because it was a country boarding school in Bowral.
Yep.
He'd pick me up, and back in those days, the Formula One was still in Adelaide.
Yeah, okay.
And then we'd drive down to Adelaide, and I remember being like 13 or 14. I'm not sure if I should say this, but I'd be driving across the Hay Plains while he had a little kip. So
was that your first experience driving and getting used to cars?
No. In South Africa, my stepfather had a bit of a plot, and they had a little figure 8 course or something, and so I drove some paddock bashes and whatnot, and some quad bikes and stuff. So I'd driven some stuff before as well, but well, my dad may have also tested the Hay Plains for the speed of cars, and whilst he was sleeping, I may have tried to challenge him.
There wasn't as many cops and stuff back then on the roads, was it? What time? What year was this? What year was this? Around the 90s or the 80s?
So it would have been late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
We used to have radar detectors, and I remember the one time, getting pulled over by a cop, and the guys and you weren't allowed to do body searches, so my dad would as you get pulled over, my dad would pull the radar detector down, and chuck it at me and say, "Dack it." Put it down your pants, and they're not going to search a kid.
Yeah.
So and this cop's at the window going, "I know you've got a radar detector. You slowed down too quickly. You obviously knew something." And my dad's like, "No, don't know what you're talking about, sir." I'm just sitting there. So some fun times back in the day.
Have you had so obviously you're talking about your fascination with cars, and you didn't have the upbringing like most guys that I've brought into the shop with go-karts and stuff like that. You actually came from a poorer background. Can you explain like living in those times and wanting to race a car back then, like as a teenager?
Well, I guess it was sort of more of a pipe dream. I mean, like it wasn't a realistic thing, and so I don't know if I actually really had this big connection with wanting to do it because it wasn't realistic. So there was no opportunity. I remember, my dad had a friend who raced go-karts, and we went and did this company race day.
Yeah, like a high kart event.
Yeah, and I rocked up and beat all of them, so that was cool. I was pretty young and light back then, so it probably helped.
Yeah.
And I had and I did one of Baxter's. He had the old Holden.
Yeah,
I can't remember what they were. So he had like an Oran Parker. He had a day there, and I remember getting pole and winning that as well. Just going out for a random day.
Yeah.
And then we always went to the Formula Ones every year.
Yep.
So that was always a really exciting time. And then the one year we were going, and my dad saw this thing that said, Grand Prix Rally, go drive your road car, on all these little times, speed stages, and then you get to drive on the track. So we did that in his Audi TT, and we sort of shared a bit of the driving.
Yeah. Where was this at?
So it was for the Formula One. We went through a whole bunch of the Victorian country towns, Bright, Shepparton.
Yeah.
I can't even remember all the
names.
Yeah,
okay. So it was like more sort of a tarmac rally.
It was a bit like a tarmac, but it was just it wasn't a rally. It was just a speed event.
Yeah.
So you had little special stages, and you drove, no roll cage required.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I remember, being on the Formula One track, and you just hang in the bag, drop back, try and hit the curves and see if you can get the car to bounce a bit, and so and then whilst we were there, there was this guy that was doing it, and he said, "Oh, you should get into tarmac rally," and I'm like, "What's that?" And they said, "Oh, there's this thing called East Coast Targa, which was at Bathurst," and so I said, "Okay, that's cool. Well, I guess we need a car for it." And I bought a little Nissan Pulsar GDIR, and
right.
And that was I picked it up from the docks. It had been sitting on the docks forever. The brakes were all seized up.
Yeah,
it was
right. Okay.
So the first time I took it on the road, I think I crashed with a parked car because it wouldn't stop, and I went, "Oh, crap." So we end up doing a little bit of work to it, and
did you just drive it to like a mechanic shop down the road, or did you and your dad fix it?
No. At this point, we got some. We took it to a place called Chroma Exhaust.
Yep.
And we ended up getting a little bit of sponsorship from them. They supported us in our early days of tarmac rallying, and they did a whole bunch of our work on our cars at cost. So they were really, really good. They're not around anymore, but they were really good for us in our early days. Back then, we didn't know anything. It took me a long time to even know what understeer was. Yeah. Let alone how do you turn a spanner on something. So
you'd just go into essentially you just get into a car and just drive it, wouldn't you?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. So just flog the crap out of it. And when it breaks, I go, oh, I don't know what to do now.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, that's how it all started. I mean, obviously, I developed a lot throughout my career and, became more interested in the mechanical side and the setup side particularly. Once I knew there was that side. I didn't know at first. Like, going to boarding school, it was just about, partying and girls, really.
Yeah. So, how was your teenagehood back then? Was obviously you've met your wife and stuff, but do you remember much of, because you grew up in Sydney? So did you ever go to King's Cross and whatnot with a bunch of mates from school?
Do I remember much? No, I don't remember much. It was a lot of partying and girls. So I lived a lot as a youngster, which which is the fact that I didn't have the opportunities to go racing back then. I probably the lifestyle I was living, I probably wouldn't have anyway. I was a young stupid kid.
Did you get up to any trouble?
Maybe a little.
I'm throwing this podcast a bit just to give some extra questions.
We got into a little bit of trouble from time to time, but I mean, there was plenty of nights we went to we did the cross thing. We're at pubs, partying, all sorts of stuff. So occasionally we got in trouble with the law, and nothing too serious. Didn't end up other than overnight drunk cells, but didn't end up in anything too serious. So probably more lucky than anything else, really.
Yeah. Did you finish school?
Yeah, went through.
I see. You did all that, but you didn't go to uni though, or did you?
No, I didn't go to uni. I actually left school and became a plumber.
Yeah. Okay. So that was your first. What was essentially your first job where you got to start?
Yeah. I wanted to become a real estate salesman or in property somewhere, and
what you're doing now.
Which we do now. But at that time I sent off probably a couple of hundred resumes to every single real estate in the phone book, because back in there it was all yellow pages, and just sent it off, and everyone goes, look, great application, great follow through, but you're too young, So I was like, they all come back in a few years' time, so I may as well go get a trade. It's in property, so apparently plumbing was the best paying trade, so I went and did plumbing. So that was the road we went down. So,
and you've always, I've known you anyways, as long as I've known you. You've always lived in the Northern Beaches. When did that happen as a kid? Did you live anywhere else in Sydney before moving to the Northern Beaches?
Yeah, so we lived in. I think I went to about 5 different primary schools between South Africa and then moving to Australia, and we're in Wahroonga and Turramurra, and then went over to Camaray and then Narrabeen as well. So spent a fair bit of time on the North Shore. And then we moved to the Northern Beaches when I was about 16, 17. So I was at boarding school for the whole of my high school. Probably a good thing, it sort of grounded me. You had to do rugby and cadets. Learn quite a bit of discipline and structure and that sort of stuff, which I think later in life has really stood me well. Because when you in business and whatever, you need to have discipline and structure. So and not be scared to have a go. So boarding school was really good for me, and I had some really good people around me in boarding school, and it was a good thing. Yeah.
Did you enjoy any other sports? Like, obviously you love cars, right? You love to go fast, but did you enjoy, like, for me, for example, I love rugby league. So I love rugby league and like MMA type of stuff. Did you enjoy any other sports back then as a kid?
Oh, absolutely. I was over passionate about rugby union. I played even after school. I played for a few years. Played for Newport Breakers, and then I played for a few games for the Warringah Rats. And I missed a year after school, and somebody said, once you miss a year, you'll never play again. And typically my fashion, I said, I'll show you. So I went and played again. So
what position were you playing on rugby? Were you forward or a back?
Yeah, I was a hooker, mate, right in the middle of the action.
Yeah, right. You were right in the middle of the ruck.
I like being in the middle of the action. I like being a little smart ass.
Did you talk shit in the rucks to get the ball?
Yeah, I did lots of. Used to turn and lick the other hooker's face just as the ball came in to steal it. Used to put the knee up in it. Yeah, no, I got taught some good little tactics, and I copped a couple as well.
Do you remember any highlights of like winning any certain games or anything like that as a kid, or not really?
Well, our team was actually in the Schoolboys World Cup, so we played Schoolboys World Cup. I can't even remember, probably like 93, 94, probably 94.
We've got enough notes here that we're losing track of all the years that you
So played Schoolboys World Cup, but I mean the only reason we played Schoolboys World Cup was it was held in our grounds.
Yeah,
but that was actually really interesting. Like, you know, there was you know, teams from Argentina, South Africa, New Zealand. You know, it was
Japan and all that.
I don't remember any Japanese teams. Well, I don't remember.
Yeah,
but you know, it was also during school holidays, so it was a massive party fest as well, and it was a big couple of weeks. So, but it was actually really cool. Like you like even after leaving school and watching how New Zealand and Argentina and all that play, you know, in their Premier Division, you could see it at Schoolboys. Like, you know, the Argentinians were quite niggly and dirty. You know, the New Zealanders, even at schoolboy level, you know, they spread the ball. They're fast at the rucks. They clear it out real quick, and they get, you know, do a lot of turnover possession back then. And, you know, so
You're from the Northern Beaches, and you've probably raced a football player who I'm probably going to mention now, which is Jack Elsgood. Do you remember much of him, or did any of that? Did you actually two form a friendship racing together, or are you just known through racing?
The V8 Ute I raced was his car.
Yeah, right.
So he used to come in when we had the shop. He used to come in and you know, just talk crap, and obviously the Utes had the licensing thing.
Yep.
So they had to run. Otherwise they got fined.
Yep.
And so we ran Homebush in his car because he goes, "Hey, I got to run. Do you want to run the car?" You know, and I went, sure.
Yeah, right.
I was never one to say no to anything, really.
Yeah.
You know, back in my partying days, and then also back when in racing, it's like, sure. How do you make it work? I don't know. Let's work it out. So you just juggle and make things work.
So did he just own the car, or was that through a team, or was it?
No,
just
it was his car.
Yeah,
I believe it was his car. And then we got it in the shop, and the clutch was stuffed, and I remember we needed to do quite a bit of work to it, but And then we went, you know, no testing.
Yeah.
Typical. There'll be a fair bit of that in my story. Anytime I did any of these one-off things, no testing, just throw in the deep end. Let's see how we go.
Yeah.
And I remember I formed an alliance with a technical alliance for the weekend at Homebush with Cedars Racing.
Yep.
So I took the car out to them. They put it on the patch and set it up for me. By this stage, I knew there was a setup patch. You know, in my early days, I didn't even know there was a setup patch.
Yeah.
So
we'll go backward to this story after this. We'll talk about the Elsgood story. But yeah.
So So I mean, Jack Elsgood's a really good guy. In fact, you know what? For a footy player, he did really, really well as a race car driver.
Yeah, right.
So, and he's a really good guy as well. So you know, no real ego for somebody who's had the success he had.
Yep.
You know, really good guy, really down to earth guy.
Do you know what he's doing now? I've got him on my social media, but do you know what he's doing?
He's in real estate.
Yeah, okay. So he's in real estate, just like you.
He's real estate sales. I'm not really in sales. I'm more of an investor.
Yeah.
So investor developer.
Yep. So you originally, we'll now start your racing story, which is quite good. Jack Elsgood gets the first pop of your racing story. But in 2000, you actually originally didn't actually know what to do to get into cars, didn't you?
Well, like I said before, you know, it all started because we used to go to the Formula One. In fact, we probably missed from when the Australian Formula One Grand Prix came to Adelaide in mid-80s, about 86. Until probably I was pretty heavily involved in motorsport. I think I only missed 3 races, 3 Formula Ones. So we went to every single one of them.
Yeah, right.
So before I competed, I was heavily invested in as a spectator.
Yeah.
And then when the opportunity came to drive, you know, we took it, and then we did rallies, and I mean rallying's quite expensive as well, tarmac rallying and Targa and all that sort of stuff. So, you know, so you're limited to how many we could do a year in our budget. So, you know, I'm sure a bit later on we'll get into the V's, but you know, the V's came in a little bit, you know, as a top up.
Yeah.
You know, so as a top up, and then and continued that way as well. Like, you know, like. I've always had a national program.
Yep.
But I've always had the Formula V's along because effectively I can do a whole season of Formula V for the price of one national round.
Yeah, right.
So, you know, and you know, you look at all the go-karters, they're all in their cars every weekend.
Yeah.
I probably didn't do enough testing for, you know, the national program, but I got the extra seat time by doing the V stuff.
Yeah, right. So you're going between, obviously, you're known now these days for your production car and your V days, but you essentially... You realised to get somewhere, you actually had to gain a license, used V's as your license, and then you've become more and more over the years involved with the category in Formula V.
Well, yeah, so we did Targa Tasmania, but Targa events. We did Targa New Zealand, Classic Adelaide, Targa West. There's a couple of stories there.
Yeah.
But I thought I was going to die in Targa West. It's pretty fast.
Yeah, right. You got to tell me after the V.
Yeah. So we did Targas for about 10 years, and in about I think 05, 06, they brought out the 12-hour at Bathurst, and we had just upgraded from the Nissan Pulsar GT-IR. Coincidentally, we ordered the new car, which was a Mitsubishi Evo 9. And then I happened to roll the GT-IR in New Zealand. But actually, we tried to leave it in New Zealand, but then they wanted to charge us import duty for bringing a car in. I'm going, it's just dirt now. So anyway, that's another story. But so I wanted to do the 12-hour in our new Evo 9 that we had just bought, but my rally license didn't work, so I needed to get a circuit license. I went, well, what's the cheapest way for me to do that? Someone said, go lease a V. I went, okay, what's a V? And I leased this V off Steve Wood, and it wasn't very fast. And
it was a Sabri, wasn't it? Was it a Sabri?
No, the first one was a Spectre. And then I went, you know what? I want something that's a bit quicker, so I bought my own car. Because back then you had to do 5 events.
To gain your full license.
To get your license as well as your flag day.
Did you have to start from the rear of the field, or
no,
just qualify?
No, you could just qualify. I mean, your 1200s against 1600, so you were fairly deep in the field anyway. And then so we did. So I bought a V, and I did 2 events in my own V, and then I still had 2 more events to do. And it still wasn't fast enough. Typical driver. It was never. I've never heard a driver ever say there's a car that's fast enough
or perfect.
Perfect.
So, there's never a perfect or
So I rebuilt the engine in the off season, then came back and did my last 2 signature events the start of the following year. And I think we won both those races. So now we're leading the championship. So you got to keep going, don't you?
Was this New South Wales or was this
New South Wales?
Okay.
So we were leading
Who was your main rivals that year? Do you remember?
That year there was a guy called Lucas Eady. So the year when the last 2 events I did in 05, there was Daniel Reynolds, who went on to have a lot of success. There was Ryan Stott, Mitch Abrahall, who set a couple of lap records. There were some really good steerers.
Was Butcher around then back then?
Yeah, Butcher was in 1600 though.
Oh, okay. So this is the 1200.
So that was still 1200, and then those quick guys in that last in 05 all went up to 1600. So the following year I had there was Bruce Pearce, Lucas Eady, and someone else, and so it wasn't as strong a field. So we won the first 2 races, and then we went on to dominate the season. We won the championship, got a lap record, won Division 2, which is both 16 and 1200. Got Rookie of the Year. Really did a lot of stuff to boost the ego, which made you think you're pretty good. So and that's why I had to buy a 1600, because I'm like, well, I think I'm pretty good now. So let's get a 1600 and let's see how we go against the main guys, which that time had Ryan Simpson and Benny Porter, and although Porter left when I went up, but he was there the year I was in 1200s.
Yeah, okay, but was the 1200 now it's a bit more of like a less, like it's not as big as it was, kind of like Formula 4. They have the Duratec, and Duratec's bigger and so on like that. But was 1200s bigger back then in the field, or was there like 10 cars instead of like 6, for example?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, it was much bigger back then. I mean, in fact, when I stepped in, it was still a very strong competitive field. Like, you still had a lot of good guys. The year I won it, it was probably the first year that it wasn't as strong. So I don't want to devalue my championship, but the championship we won in the 1200s, it probably wasn't the strongest field. But in saying it, we still got a lap record which we'll keep forever. It's at Oran Park Short Circuit. So
Do you remember much? Do you remember much of Oran Park?
Oh, I loved Oran Park.
Do you have any memories from that era of just racing, even just going to like a supercar round, for example?
You know what? I've never really been overawed by occasion, people, circumstance. Like I'll sit on the biggest events, dummy grid, and
you won't be in awe of a driver.
I'm not in awe of anybody. Like human beings are human beings. I'm not in awe of anybody, or I don't get overwhelmed by a situation. It's like I'll be first time at like when I did Carrera Cup, that was a big step up from where I had been. And I wasn't too phased by the people. I mean, I was hoping I could do a good enough job as a driver. Because
you had Mick Ritter as a team boss. What do you think about the whole? We were speaking off air about Mick Ritter. He's got one of the most amazing operations going. What do you think about the way he just does motorsport?
Mick is a freaking legend. I think he's probably one of the more misunderstood, perceived guys for people who don't know him.
Yeah, okay.
Once you work with him, and I mean, there's a pretty hard exterior and a lot of swearing and smoking and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, he's just a rough.
But he's a cool guy, man. Like he's you know, he pushes people to get the best out of them. The only reason, you know, he's being harsh to you is because he wants you to do your best.
Yeah.
So, you know, I got all the time in the world, you know, for those guys down there. They do a great job.
Yeah. And you teamed up for your first, well, obviously we're going in between all your racing, but it makes a podcast anyway. But you teamed up in King Carrera Cup first with Nick Foster, who went on to do great things overseas.
Yes.
How'd you find him as a teammate?
I'll bring you back a step. Because how I got there, it was actually a unique situation. So because they had the Pro-Am thing, and Sonic had Ryan Simpson.
Who you raced in V's and
yeah. Well, Simo also raced in one of my. You know, we shared a card in prod cars.
Yeah, right.
Once or twice.
Yeah, okay.
I think we lost a wheel or something happened. It wasn't the most successful
outing
with him, but I mean that guy is seriously talented driver.
Yeah,
you know, one that maybe should have made it.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, also he had some financial backing. You know, they threw tyres.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at my history, I sort of suck at qualifying.
Yeah.
Probably because I never threw tyres, didn't do enough testing. You know, I was always quite consistent and fast, but I never maximised the new tyre.
Yeah.
But yeah. So with the whole Foster thing, my dad, we're on our way to IndyCar.
Yeah. The Gold Coast.
To the Gold Coast IndyCar event.
Yeah. Okay.
And my dad was on the aeroplane. I think we might have been racing. I'm not sure if we were just spectating or if we were racing because we did Aussie cars there. But my dad was on the aeroplane. I was
going to ask you about Aussie cars.
Yeah.
But go on, yeah.
My dad was on the aeroplane and the guy sitting next to was Rob Manley, which is Nick Foster's stepbrother.
Yeah.
And he was trying to chase sponsorship for his Formula Ford gig.
Yeah.
Anyway, we ended up, my dad, you know, rang me and said, oh, this guy's been chatting to me, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, let's help him out for a little bit. Let's see how it goes. And, you know, it wasn't a huge deal. And, you know, I mean, he was struggling for some budget and we gave some budget to him. And I think we did 3 rounds with him to try and help him get on his program.
Yeah.
But that created the connection with them, helping them out. And then obviously his brother's Nick Foster. Nick Foster was doing Carrera Cup. And then, you know, they had Ryan Simpson. Then they changed the AM rule. And then Ryan Simpson was then deemed a pro, so he couldn't be an AM.
Yeah,
right. So then Sonic was throwing all these names at Porsche Australia.
Yep.
And they go, nope. And it's getting closer and closer and closer to the event.
Yeah, okay.
And then, you know, and then so Rob goes, hey, why don't you try this Dylan guy out? He's done a whole bunch of prod stuff and he's done this and he goes half okay.
Yeah.
So I get this phone call. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
Yes, please. I'll come drive a Porsche. You know,
You're looking at it with massive eyes going, yes, I get to race a Porsche at this point.
The first one was the most eye-opening thing ever.
Yeah.
Because I literally, I raced, I had a test day at Phillip Island on the Monday. We raced Formula V at Eastern Creek in the wet on the Sunday. Now, we did a pretty good job in the wet on Sunday. I remember I was following Kinsella, probably one of my most exciting races.
Yeah.
It's bucketing down. You can't see anything. We're going through turn 1 flat in the V, and all I could see was Kinsella's rain light. And I'm just literally driving off his rain light. If he goes off, I was literally following a rain light and spray.
Yeah, right.
And then I went down to Phillip Island. So that, you know, in the wet, that thing's probably what, 150 Ks or something.
Yeah.
And then I fly down and we go down at Carrera Cup at PI.
Yep.
And we're going through turn 1, and they go, and you're doing 272 Ks, turn in, then brake. And I'm like, what do you mean brake after you turn in? And I really struggled. Like I really struggled that first test day. And they threw some new tyres at me, and I've already explained I'm not the best on new tyres at getting maximising. And so you know, I remember.
Did they have a tyre bank during that race, so you could only use a certain amount of tyres, or were you able to throw like tyres at the car at that point?
Well, this was during the practice. In the race, I think you had a stop, so you only had one stop to throw tyres at.
Yeah,
and I'm pretty sure we got tyres at that stop.
Yeah.
So, but I remember leaving the test day, and I remember just in the background, the guy, just that feeling of the guys going, who the fuck's this guy we've just brought in?
Yeah.
He's shit.
Yeah, what is he doing?
And literally, he's so out of his depth. And I was honestly out of my depth at that point.
Yeah. You're going, fuck, how did I get myself here?
Yeah. And in the garage, we had Heimgartner and Timmy Slade.
Yeah.
And
Heimgartner's
going, I think I can go flat through 1. And he tried it. And dead set, he almost made it.
Yeah.
And I remember like that elevated Slade Dog and all those guys to a next level because Heimgartner almost went flat. We've got to have a go.
Yeah.
And I'm going, holy shit, I just want a break. So, and that was the only test we got. Then we got to the event, and fortunately, I did a much better showing at the event than in the test day, because if it went off the test day, I wouldn't have got a second call in.
Yeah. Yeah, so, right. Wow.
Yeah,
and how many years did you get called back to do Carrera Cup racing?
So we did all three of them from that. There haven't been any since.
Yeah, okay. But would you come back with Sonic to do them? Do you reckon they would call you back?
Well, off the back of my results that I've had, because we won the first one. I finished third with Nick McBride on the second one.
Yep.
And the third one, we won race one with McBride again.
Yep.
And then race two was a wet start. And I'd bloody had a wet start, never even started the thing in the wet.
Yeah.
Never even driven it in the wet. And I'm like, oh, crap. And Rita goes, just do a granny start. And I did one on practice on the way out, and it was fine.
Yeah.
And then I was off pole, and I did one. And then so I tried to do the same thing again off the start, and it bloody stalled. And by the time I get my finger to the start button, someone hit the back of me. So
yeah, right.
That wasn't ideal.
Those cup cars, because my dad obviously is in that whole realm of Porsche racing. They accelerate and brake like a Formula One car essentially to get it off the line, isn't it? It's got a special launch control.
You literally just hold it flat, and hold the clutch down.
Yep.
And then you just let the clutch off and modulate the clutch to get. So you keep the throttle flat.
Yep.
And just modulate the clutch.
Yeah, right.
A little bit motocrossy.
Yeah, okay.
I guess I liked that.
Yeah, right. And so you've teamed up with Nick McBride, and you've had obviously guys in your garage like Tim Slade and stuff. Did you actually team up with Tim Slade at a 6-hour event, or what?
Yeah, I think we did a couple. So obviously I brought Slady. So, always got along well with Slady. I probably formed that little bit of relationship, I guess, at Sonic. I don't really recall.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, I'm not a starstruck guy. It's Slay Dog's just another dude.
He's another dude.
He's just another serious dude that wants to do well at racing, and and can pedal.
Yeah.
And I messaged him and said, hey, do you want to do 6-hour with me? He goes, sure. It wasn't that complex.
Yeah.
I had a car, we led every 6-hour, just couldn't finish the bloody things.
Yeah.
But we always had speed, my lap times from Timmy Slade's weren't too bad. I spent a lot of time in production cars and endurance racing. Won a number of endurance races, even against TMR.
Yep.
And so I spent a lot of time working on a used tire or driving on a used tire. Yeah. And I think later on in my motorsport, that hurt me a bit, because I spent so long, doing consistent lap times. And that's probably what helped in that Porsche Pro-Am, because they're endurance races effectively.
Yeah, you're better on a used tire.
Yeah, I was good on the used tire, and, been able to almost match the pros times on a used tire almost.
Yeah, right. Did you actually use, like, because they were your teammates at the time, anyone who was your teammate, did you use them as like a driver coach in a way? Like, did you compare notes and think, I can go better here? Or did you just teach yourself as you went along? Because as we've said off air, you had no experience how to set up a car. So did you just go into every race learning off a more experienced driver to get the knowledge that you have today? Yeah,
well, I mean, I didn't have a mentor as such where, somebody was saying, hey, if you do this or do that. But what I did look at the data. And I remember that first year at Sonic, I'm like, give me some data. And I remember Mike Henry going, piss off, dickhead. Yeah. Just go away.
Yeah.
And I'm like, just give me something. And I mean, I just took screenshots of it, and I just go and have a look at, your throttle trace, brake trace, and go, okay, my corner speed or the sweeper speed, I need to carry more speed. So yeah, I'm very much self-taught everything. Yeah. So in fact, probably my biggest mentor was probably Steve Butcher in Formula V's.
Yeah, right.
So he probably taught me more than anybody, really.
Yeah, right. How'd you meet Steve in general? Because I remember racing for him twice, which I struggled big time in V's. I don't think people understand how hard it is to drive a V and to get it quick. But how did you meet Steve, and how did it go from there?
So I think Steve built that 1200 engine that, when I had that 1200.
Yeah.
And like a typical driver, it didn't have enough power. I said, who builds an engine around here for 1200s? And they said, oh, this guy Steve Butcher.
Yep.
So and then when I went to 1600s, I actually was going to buy a Jacer.
Yeah.
Jacer was probably the winning car at that time, and it was a good looking car, well presented, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And Butcher was like, mate, drive one of my cars. Come try my car.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And then I rang up Jace Cutts and said, hey, look, is there anybody who's got a Jacer who can come down to this test day so I can do a session in that car
to compare cars?
To compare the cars.
Yeah, okay.
And you know, nothing came from that. So I went down with Butcher, and Butcher put me in his car all day at Wakefield.
Mm-hmm.
The car was a bag of shit.
Yep.
It ended up breaking.
Like a push rod or something like that.
Yeah, push rod or something on the front. And it spat me off, and he was trying monoshock, so the thing wasn't set up. It was a bag of crap.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I had this envelope with $5,000 cash for a deposit for the Jacer. It still said Jacer on the envelope, and I just gave Butcher the envelope and said, "All right, build me a car."
Yeah.
You know, so and that's how the relationship with Butcher started.
Yeah, right.
You know, because he wanted me in his car.
Yeah,
that was the fundamental reason why I went with him.
Yeah, instead of Jason Cuts.
Yeah.
And Jason is like Mike Borland in a way. He's like the Sydney operation for building chassis here. Yeah, but you decided to go with Stephen just because he was more entrepreneur or like bit smaller.
I went with him 100% because he pushed hard to get me in his car. Yeah. He wanted me in his car.
Yeah. How did it make, like, how did you make those cars work? Because as you said at the start, and even when I've driven them, some of them are a bit of a bucket of shit. But how did you get them? Did you refine the chassis setup for cars later on for like your drivers?
Yeah, well, all my cars all had Jacer rear ends.
Yeah.
Nothing against. Yeah. I mean, Butcher sort of had a bit of a reputation, Butcher by nature. Butcher by name, Butcher by nature.
Yeah.
So, you know, so he was a little bit rough.
You'd actually cut half the cars and make, like, you'd actually like make a 50-50 car in a way, would you?
Well, no, it was just more the rear suspension geometry. So, we ended up doing a test day at Eastern Creek. And the original Stingers had independent rears, and still had the leaf spring. Yeah. And I'm going, mate, how dinosaur? We got to get rid of this bloody leaf spring. Yeah. You know, what's everyone doing? You start looking at everybody else that's quick, and they've all got these monoshock rear suspension. Yeah. So I said, you know, and as I said, Butcher was just starting to trial it on that test day, and you know, so, but again, his pickup points were all too weak for what. You know, the load that was going through it. Yeah. So what I did was I actually just looked at the Jacer stuff and said to Jason, I mean, and I've always got along well with Jason and David, and I just said, you know, let me buy a couple of your Jacer arms and I'll modify the back of the chassis to take the suspension arms. Yeah. So that I could put the monoshock on that'd be strong enough.
To make the car balance more and just go glide through the corner better.
And the car went nearly 0.8 of a second quicker between turn 2 and turn 12 at Eastern Creek.
Yeah, right.
So because with the independent rear, you kept lifting a wheel, which means you'd have a wheel driving because you're not on the ground; it's in the air, so you're losing drive.
Yeah, can you explain a bit to the listeners who either want to get into Formula V or whatnot how a Formula V should run, like around the track, like from your Stinger, like to get it to glide. So in a Formula Ford, you want to brake really late and then accelerate out like a go-kart in a way. Is there the same technique? Same technique as a Ford, or is it the V a bit more different?
Well, I think it's also driver preference, Like we talked about Ryan Simpson earlier. Now, Ryan Simpson was friggin' awesome in actually pretty much in everything he drove, but in the V particularly. But the way he drove, he used to drive the car hard, he'd slide it in and then drive it out. Yeah. You know, whereas, you know, what worked for me was once I got the car set up into a balance that I was happy with, I play with most of my setup on the rear rebound. Yeah, so, you know, soften it up to try and pitch the rear up and get that car to rotate the rear early. I mean, any race car, it's all about how do you get to 100% throttle as early as you can. Yeah, yeah. So if you can get to 100% throttle earlier than the next guy, you're going to be quicker to the next corner. Yeah. So, you know, the method that I used was I used my rear rebound. You know, let the car pitch up and get it to rotate through rebound. Yep. Get it to rotate and then get on the gas.
Yeah, right. And so you obviously at the start of your Formula V career, you're not winning. I mean, you weren't winning. You did the 1200s, which you won off the bat. Then you came to 1600s, which was a bit more harder because you had, as you said, Ryan Simpson and, you know, Ben Porter had just left the class, but it was really, really tough back then, wasn't it?
Oh, that 1200, I did my first ever national title, and we finished second to Kieran Glover. Yeah. And I remember, and he had, you know, the Guru setup guy from Tasmania and...
Yep.
I really should know his name.
It's all right. We get every podcast every now and then.
Noel Clark. Yeah. And everybody goes, you know, Noel Clark knows how to set up a car. And I'm going, set up? What's that? Yeah. You know, and I remember going, you know, he's quicker than me. I just got to drive faster. I mean, yeah. Fuck, I was really driving as fast as I could. Yeah. So, you know, and that was the moment that I realized, because all my Targa history, you know, and I said this to you before, but all my Targa history, you know, you pay someone to prep a car, you jump in the car, And I remember Jim Richards in one of my early Targas that he did a talk at the start, and he goes, "Look, you only drive the car at 8/10. You don't. On the last day you can work out where you are.
Yeah.
I mean, Jim Richards was a friggin' legend. Like, that guy could jump in anything and drive it fast.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying, all you need to do is drive at 8/10, keep it on the bloody road, and when you get to day 5, you then look at who you're racing.
Yeah.
And so a Targa car, you're never repeating the same bit of road, so you never know what the road condition is, track conditions, road condition is. So you can never really ultimately commit.
Yeah.
So you're never really pushing it to that point where, we've got understeer in that corner, we've got oversteer over there, because it could be, you've got there and it's got a bit of moss on the road, particularly through Mount Arrowsmith or snow.
Yeah.
I did a couple of snow sessions,
Yeah.
a couple of snow years at Mount Arrowsmith. You're never really needing setup as much as you do in circuit in rally.
Yeah, okay.
So it wasn't until that 1200 national title that I realised that, hey, I'm driving this thing as hard as I bloody can. I need something else.
Yeah.
And then and that's when I started. And then obviously I bought the Stinger with Butcher, and then I remember I pestered that guy. Hey, what do you think about this? How do you do this? What do you? If my car's understeering, how do I change it? Well, where's it understeering? What do you mean where? Well, there's entry, middle, and exit. Which part of the corner is it understeering at?
Yeah.
Oh shit, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I remember that next period of my driving career,
Yeah.
I'd be talking to myself in the car, going, "What's the car doing? Where is it in there? Is it on the way in or is it on the way out?" Or
to get yourself in the mental game.
Yeah, and it took me a little bit of time to develop that ability to get that feel for what the car's doing. So, it's really hard for these, young kids that come in quickly to have that feel if they haven't. I mean, the guys that have done go-karts their whole life, they've got it naturally because they developed it through the younger years.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on like the whole development process of cars? Obviously, people do come in with a budget because it is motorsport. If you've got money, you can go wherever you want, right?
Yeah.
But should there be like a licensing system to get to like a supercar? So should there be like you got to race in the state level ranks for a bit to get somewhere? What's your point? What's your perception?
No, I mean, I'm not in favour of the licensing system. I know that Motorsport Australia has brought out this, you need so many points to get a super license.
Yeah.
A little bit what Formula One's done. Is it necessary in Australia? No.
Yeah.
But the reality is I could name a number of drivers that have missed a number of steps along the way of motorsport, gone from go-karts to something seriously quick like a Porsche or a Div 2, and are struggling.
Yeah.
The purpose of Toyota 86, Formula Ford, the junior motorsport categories, the purpose of that is to learn how to race, how to set up a car. I had no idea about setting up a car.
Yeah.
And even like we've got into Trans Am this year. I've been around motorsport, for a number of years now.
Yeah.
And pretty successful. Had a lot of success in a lot of categories.
Yeah.
But the Trans Am is completely different in setup terms to anything I've ever had before.
Yeah.
I've never had to play with, anti-dive, anti-squat, roll centers, all that sort of stuff. So
the closest thing you've done to your Trans Am's the Daytona, isn't it? The 12-hour that you raced.
Yeah, but I wasn't setting the car up. I was just I was a guest driver, mate. Helmet in a bag. Sort the car out, boys. That thing was sick though.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the most favourite cars I've ever driven.
I remember being there testing a Formula V with you. And do you remember that? You and your old man were there testing that Daytona.
Oh, that was our Daytona.
That was your Daytona. So can you explain that? Can you explain the other Daytona then? Because that was in my head as I was preparing.
No. So when we had the workshop, the mechanic workshop, we actually imported a couple of Cobras, and this guy had this Daytona sitting there. So we said, "Oh well, it's a race car. It's just a rolling chassis. Let's bring that over too."
Yeah.
Oh my God, that thing needed some development. So and we spent a shitload of money. We'll never make that money back. Actually, we sold it.
Yeah.
But we spent so much money on that car, and again, just struggled for time to test it.
Yeah.
And then we eventually said, okay, well, let's put it in an event because we'll then at least do something with it. And we blew up a first engine, and then because it was just a secondhand engine that we'd done, and so then we had to build an engine for it. And then my dad bloody had it at Wakefield and had contact with another guy. Yeah. So I had to go into the shop and get all bloody re-glassed, and
Yeah, right.
It wasn't, to be honest, it wasn't the best glassing job original that we'd ever seen either. Yeah. So so our Daytona was just something that we were building as a side project. But the Daytona was Daytona Sports Cars.
Yeah. Did you own that car?
No. That was Richard Bendel owned it.
Yeah.
He used to own Motec. And they had their so they ran Daytona sports cars. They had the Daytona Coupe, and then they also had the Dodge Viper for the 12-hour.
Yeah, okay.
So we got a call up for that, and got a really good opportunity there, and those guys were awesome. Yep. I mean, geez, I went to Bathurst and did a sub 210.
Yeah.
So I mean, we weren't allowed to actually.
Yeah.
Being an invitational class, we were supposed to be minimum time 210.
Yeah.
So I did a couple under the 210. So that's always a highlight when you can be sub 210 at Bathurst.
Yeah, we were talking about ages ago. Obviously, you were going to the Gold Coast and you were into Aussie racing cars. Do you remember much of your Aussie racing car days and how different those cars were to what you'd previously driven, like in Tarmac Rally and the V?
Well, we only did the one event. So I did a test day at Oran Park.
Yep.
And to be honest with you, and again, this shows you how stupid we were back then. So again, we were a bit tight for dollars, and my dad and I both did it. We didn't even buy tyres for the cars for the Gold Coast event. Yeah. So we ran on, I don't know, old tyres. Who knows? I mean, Phil Ward ran it back then, and I don't think we got a very good car. As soon as we said we're not buying tyres. Yeah. We said, have you got decent tyres? Oh, yeah, we've got some decent tyres. Okay, well, if you got decent tyres, we won't buy tyres. Yeah. It's just a fun event, one off, blah, blah, blah. Yep. I reckon we had the crappiest, worst tyres that he had in his shed. Yeah. And then I drove out of first practice and the bloody diff went. Yeah. Right. And he took my money, my deposit for the diff. Yeah. So we sort of got, like, to be honest with you.
So it wasn't the best experience.
No, it left a really, really bad taste in my mouth. The whole experience, the car wasn't what I believed it was meant to be. Yeah.
What was the car? Was it a Commodore or a Ford, or do you remember it?
I think I had a Ford.
Yeah, okay.
I can't remember. My dad raced there as well that weekend, so we had two cars. Yeah. My dad in race 3, someone came from another postcode and smashed into the side of him and ripped the whole side of his car. Yeah. I remember there's images of him trying to push this other car off of his car. And then they've got a safety car and he's still driving behind the safety car with the bodywork flapping, and they've got this black flag trying to call him in. And he's going, I'm not coming in.
Yeah, I want to finish this race.
Out.
That's mad.
He lost his full deposit too. So we lost 20 grand there, 10 grand each deposit on the cars. Yeah. It wasn't 10 grand. Yeah, anyway. Yeah. Long story short, if we were treated better, I probably would have stayed in Aussie cars because those things were really fun to drive.
Yeah, okay. So. And obviously, some people may have seen on your Facebook, you posted a picture of you with I think it was a Nürburgring 24-hour race, was it? Or
Spa. Yeah, Spa 25-hour.
Yeah. I've done a lot 25. So it was actually a 25-hour race.
25-hour race. It was called the Fun Cup. So I did the Sepang 12-hour. Yep. And whilst we were at the Sepang 12-hour, that was a cool event. Yeah. Actually, we finished third, so I got this mad trophy. It's got the Formula 1 symbol on it and everything because it's at the Formula 1 track.
Yeah, right.
That's probably my coolest trophy. It probably means the least because it was only a class trophy, but it's the coolest looking one. Yeah.
What did you think about Sepang though? Was it just going to Malaysia and stuff?
Dude, but even like the driver's briefing goes, look, if you break down, you can't get help, you can't get towed in. But if you get out of the car, you can run to the pits, grab your jack and a spare wheel, come back, jack your car at the track and fix it. And we go,
fix it on the track?
Yeah, like they were like so loose.
Really?
It was so backwards, some of the regulations they had.
Wow.
The lighting was so bad. I remember at the back side of the circuit, your braking point was the shadow before the light. So you couldn't really see the track. It's just like, and I mean, because it's lighting, the shadow stays the same all night. Yeah. It was.
So you just winged it around that track to get around the track?
It was cool. It was cool fun. It was a 996, and it was so bloody hot there, humid. I mean, they trashed those cars.
Who were your teammates in that car?
So I had Danny Studdard.
Yep.
I can't even remember who the other guy was. Yeah. But Danny was cool, and Danny said, "That's how I found out about the Spa 25-hour." He goes, "You got to do this 25-hour race in Spa. It's freaking awesome." Yeah. And I went, okay, well, what is it? And we had a look, and there was 120 something V-dub Beetles, in fiberglass shells with a Polo engine with paddle shifts, and they weren't very fast. Yeah, but there's 120 cars. You slipstreaming, a bit like Formula V.
Yeah, right. Wow.
So I went, hell yeah, and it wasn't expensive. It was like, I can't remember. I think it was like 10,000 euro or something.
Yeah, to enter and go in that race.
To go in.
Yeah, right.
So we got a team with me, my dad, and a couple of other guys, and.
How many people per car? 4?
4.
Yeah, right. Wow.
And I took my mechanic over, Adam. Yep. So I took my mechanic to a lot of places. So Adam came to Sepang.
Yeah, I was going to actually ask about Adam.
Yeah. And he was my licensee of my mechanic shop. So him and I were partners. Yep. I mean, well, that's how I set up the workshop. Is I took Adam to Sepang. Took him, like when I did the Mark car 12 hours. Him and Remy came in, worked on the cars.
Yeah, right. Wow.
So I took my guys always with me wherever I could to another team with the Daytona Sports.
Yeah, so you're loyal to you were loyal to your team.
Yeah,
like your
but
team members.
It was twofold. One is I also wanted my boys to learn from other teams what other teams did. Yeah, and therefore bring it back to our team and we could do better. Yeah, so it was always about always learning.
Yeah, I thought you were taking the piss on the internet when you said Nürburgring 25 hours. Like, I was pretty sure it's a
25 hours,
yeah, right. So how did that race go? Like, do you remember? Because it's a fucking 25 hours is a long time.
Mate, Adam sat on the pit wall for 25 hours.
Really?
Whole 25 hours.
How the fuck did he do that? I would have fallen asleep by 12.
I think he had a 15-minute sleep.
And a shitload of Red Bull.
So, I don't know, yeah, probably. But and we had a hotel like 5 minutes up the road. So, so I remember, because I did a go-kart 24-hour race before we went over.
At Eastern Creek?
At Eastern Creek.
Yeah, I think I was at that same race.
So I've done 2 of them. Yeah, I bought a cart and just put all my mechanics, and we just went for fun. Yeah. And I tried to stay awake all night, and it stuffed me. Yeah. But it was a good education that when we did this 25-hour race, I got out of the car, went back to the hotel, don't worry about the car, just go to sleep. Yeah. So I went out to sleep, came back, fresh as daisy, let's go again. Yeah, so right. That was a real good learning thing for me as well. Yeah, so,
okay. Yeah, right. So you were talking about, obviously, you did mini, we were talking off air about you did mini challenge. And for you, I think did you compete at the Grand Prix? That was also another short stint, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, we bought we decided that, because in Targa Taz, we got our gold trophy for 3 consecutive finishes within Targa time. And then we had a bust, and then we had a second string of 3, which I think gives you your platinum, and that was about 2010. So we had that year that we wanted to finish that, and then close the chapter of because we'd witnessed a lot of people die in Targas, and there was a couple. There was a big scare for us where we had a massive moment at Targa West at high speed. Yeah. And the rally before we finished 3rd outright at Classic Adelaide in the modern section. Might have been the only year they did modern. And
did that wake you up, that call though?
Well, at that one, there were some guys that we knew that were fairly conservative, and they died in a Porsche. And wow. And it was like, you know what? If these guys could die, and I just had my second kid at that point, and my dad goes, "Mate, we need to stop. We need to stop doing this." And so that's when we sort of decided we were going to start focusing more on some circuit stuff. And so I've always had the national program, whether it be Targas, and then it transferred across to, and we decided to go to mini challenge. We were at, I think, at Homebush, and we were watching these minis, and we're going, oh, look, there's only like 12 cars. You got to get some sort of sponsorship feedback here because you've only got 12 cars to see. Yeah. So we bought a mini, and I ended up running a couple of events the next year. Grand Prix, made my debut with Scotty McLaughlin. Yeah, I remember that. He was a 14-year-old rookie. Yep. Actually, I fucked up in that race. I'd only ever driven tarmac rally, which you're a little bit conservative, and Formula V. Yeah. So. So
who was in that field? There was McLaughlin, yourself. Do you remember anyone else?
Paul Stokell. Yeah. I can't remember.
Paul's a good driver.
Oh, Paul, yeah. Mate, how many Australian titles that guy got?
Yeah, I know.
But I actually come through the chicanes, and they got the tyres out. First time I've ever experienced tyres. Yep. Turn the wheel, your wheel sits out like this. Yep. Bloody pulled the whole freaking wheel out of and the upright out on a tyre barrier. Yeah. I went, oh, well, there's a lesson learned. Because in an open wheelie, you can see your wheels. Yeah. So you can judge it. In a car, I can see the panels. But I didn't think about the wheel sticking out. So, you're going close, but I didn't think about the wheel and ripped the wheel off. Yeah. So there was another little lesson there. So the Grand Prix, and then Townsville, we had, I did 3 events, Townsville, Homebush and AGP. Yep. And, Townsville, we had electric, sensor issues, and Homebush, we had radiator issues. Yeah,
I've never personally as a driver, as you know, I'm just a state level driver, but I've never been on a street circuit properly. How did you find going from the state level ranks to a street circuit? Was it intimidating or anything?
My son races motocross, and when he was first started riding, I had this one rule. I said, you just got to make sure you watch where you're going. Yeah. Same thing with street circuits.
Yeah, okay.
Don't look at the walls, look where you're going.
Yeah, true.
A race circuit's got a friggin' white line on either side. Yeah, yeah. What's the difference? And stay in the circuit.
Yeah, these days, you're actually helping. You're more focused on your son's motocross career.
Yes.
Yeah, so how's that going?
He's sucking a fair bit of time out of me. I mean, in essence, that's also reduced my motorsport involvement because, we used to do 30-odd race weekends a year with cars. And the last 3 or 4 years, my son's been doing a lot of motocross, and yeah, it means that I don't have that time to go to cars if I want to give, him the time. And, and he's going half all right. So,
what's the bike that he's running? Like, what
brand? He's KTM. He loves the KTM. In fact, he did the KTM kids, junior challenge at the
the big
Oz Open.
Yeah, okay.
And you know what? They really looked after the kids there. That's such a good little program that KTM do there, because my kid is orange for the rest of his life. Because of that, he is now orange.
Wow.
They looked after him. He loved the whole thing. He got given riding gear.
Yep. By KTM.
By KTM for that event. All the kids.
No way.
All the kids were dressed the same.
Yep.
And
did he get to keep it?
Yeah, mate. He wore that gear for nearly 2 years.
Wow.
Like, that stuff was so worn out. He had other gear.
Yeah.
But he kept going to that gear.
Yeah, right.
The KTM guys do a really, really good job. So, KTM Australia are a fantastic brand. They really know how to market well, and
Can you explain the difference between, like, I don't know, like, jack shit about motocross, but can you explain the difference between, like, car racing that we've done compared to, like, their junior system in motocross and how they get through their drivers through the ranks? Like, I know about Chad Reed and the big superstars like Travis Pastrana, but how do they get there? As now you've got a son in the ranks?
You know what the biggest thing that the biggest thing that sort of really sort of threw me off guard was, we rock up to the circuit and the flaggies are there, everything's there. You go sign on and you do your bit, and you're only focused on yourself.
Yeah.
You go to the motocross, every parent's got to provide a flaggie. I'm rocking up with just me and my son, so I've got to try and prep my kids' bikes, get him out of the track, and flag.
Wow.
So they normally got like 3 or 4 sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And and my kid's a short ass.
Yeah.
So every time he moves up to the next level bike, he can't touch the ground. I'm like, man, how do I flag and do this? And
right.
And it was a real juggling act. So that was probably one of the hardest things. But they've got the same sort of thing. They do a practice / qualifying.
Yep.
And then they do 3 races.
Yep.
So it's a similar sort of concept. As junior cars.
Yep.
You've got a racing structure. You've got a class structure. It's done on age.
Yeah.
So they're all in their age and their CC of their bikes, and
How'd you We'll go back to your car racing career, and I love the motocross chat, but we'll go back to your car racing career. You were a club champion at ARDC. How did that all come out? I don't even really know. How do you win an ARDC like club level? How do you get on the board? Because when I go there, I'm like, my stepdad's on there. I'm like, how do you get there?
So I didn't know I won the first one. To be honest with you. I won it 3 times, so real fortunate. A little bit helped by the fact I was running 2 categories. So if you're an ARDC member, you are automatically scoring points every time you race at Sydney Motorsport Park.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So now I was at that time when I won, probably the most popular categories at the time in terms of entry numbers was production cars and Formula V.
Yeah.
So even if I only had to run one of the category, like if they had limited everybody to one category, I still probably would have won because I was winning in the biggest numbered, because it also works on numbers. So if you have less competitors, you score less points or something. I can't remember.
Yeah, right. Okay.
But I remember Neil Muston coming to me and saying he was really pissed that I beat him one time. But he was also running 2 categories too. He was running.
Right. So some of these guys really want to win it.
Stuff. Yeah. So I mean, it's really like I said, I didn't even know I won it the first time.
Yeah. You were just like, holy shit, my name's on a board.
Well, no, they said, hey, do you want to come to the presentation? We want to do a presentation for your club championship for ARDC. I went, sorry, what?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, right. And did you ever, when you were doing Formula V racing, were you ever tempted by, because I'm a Formula Ford driver, were you tempted to do ever Formula Ford racing at all, or not really?
Oh, this is a contentious answer here.
Yeah.
Really.
Were you ever
I wasn't. And the reason being is the skill set, and this is why I say it's a contentious answer, because the people in Formula Ford are going to disagree with me heavily.
That doesn't matter. You can say whatever you want here.
But the skill set that you learn in Formula V is the same as Formula Ford. Formula Ford's a bit faster.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, how many times have you been on a track when V's and Fords are on the track for a practice day together?
Yeah.
The corner speed is the same.
Yeah.
The Ford has more speed out of the corner, so they're quicker. You got more CCs.
Yeah.
Actually, no. You got 1600s and we got 1600s, but ours are 1952 1600s.
Yeah.
So and the thing that all through my career, I look for bang for buck. You know, what can I get out of it, and how much do I need to put into it?
Yeah.
And I've never been lured into that. You know, I need to do something bigger and better. So I got plenty of reward out of racing a Formula E. Like you'll know with Fords, you know, the racing, the close quarter racing is a really cool feeling.
That's adrenaline rush.
Oh mate, like going, you know, sometimes 4 wide through turn 1 at Eastern Creek or turn 1 at Phillip Island.
Oh, I love Phillip Island.
Mate, you're 4 wide sometimes, and it's like sometimes you don't know if you're coming out the other side.
Yeah.
Like, you know, your butt puckers up like nothing else.
Yeah.
I mean, that's cool. You know, that's and you know what? And everybody gives each other that, because you're open wheels and you can end up in the sky. You're really, really close, like overlapping. Yeah. But everybody gives each other enough respect. Yeah. And it's good quality racing. So, you know, like I say, the stuff that V's taught is the same stuff that Formula Ford teaches. Yet if I you know, bin a V, mate, it's $1,600 front and disc to disc on the front end. Yeah. You know, how much is a corner on a Ford?
Ford's a few grand.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, so I mean, the gearbox from gearbox and disc to disc is like under $2,000. Yeah. Including the gearbox. Yeah. You know, like, mate, I can bin plenty of them. Yeah.
You know? For me, the most fun Ford race is the Phillip Island Classic, the historics, because it's got 50-car fields. Yep. And you've raced 50-car fields in Vs. Yep. What's the adrenaline rush racing in a big field for people who have never raced open wheels?
Like, you know, the actual racing in the big, like, to be perfectly honest, Formula V is really they're not a fast car. So if you, for some reason, at Phillip Island are by yourself around Phillip Island in a Formula V, boring as batshit. Yeah. Fair.
Yeah. It's on. So you're on your own. Yeah,
you're on your own. It's a big ass track, and it's not a high-powered car. So Phillip Island on your own in a Formula V, boring as batshit. Yeah. But mate, when you're in a group of and you know, if you're in a group of 8, which is always the case, or more at Phillip Island, you could be leading coming onto the straight, and you'll be 8th at the end of the straight because the slipstream is so strong. Yeah. So you know, it's the exciting part is you know, you're mentally thinking about where to place your car. You know, how do I get the best run onto the straight? How do I slipstream this guy? And then that into turn 1, how committed am I? You know, and when I say committed, everybody's flat. Yeah. But it's like, you know, how do I have that the smallest, you know, steering input, you know, to try and get the least amount of scrub? How do I, you know, position myself in the lead up to that so that I'm in the position to do that because there's 3 other guys there that I'm trying to get in between? Yeah. How do I put my wheel so that, you know, I've got the upper hand through the exit of the corner?
Yeah,
you know,
to try and be first across the line.
So, yeah, well, even for the next lap, you know, like how do I get to Southern before the next guy by the commitment I make through turn 1?
Yeah, right.
So turn 1's the best thing about, well, actually, there's a lot of good things about Phillip Island, you know.
Well, is that your favorite? Is that one of your favorite tracks? Or do you like? Or do you like if you compare both tracks, or do you just think they're very, very different?
I love every track. You know, like I know there's people that hate going to Wakefield because they call it a goat track. Yeah, it's just a different challenge. Yeah, you know, I love every track for different reasons. You know, like Wakefield clearly doesn't have, you know, the facilities and the circuit maintenance that, you know, a Phillip Island or an ARDC SMSP has. You know, but it has other, you know, a Formula V is a pretty agricultural car, mate. All your nuts and bolts are coming loose by the end of the the end of the weekend. You know, you got to make sure you maintain the car. How do I ride the bumps? You know, blah blah blah. It's just a different element. You know, how do I set this car up to suit this? Yeah.
What's your input on the whole Wakefield scenario? Like,
it's bullshit.
It's bullshit. That's it.
It's like buying a house next to the airport and then complaining about the airplanes. Yeah. You know, what a dickhead. Yeah. You know, like, you know, I mean, I think all of us in the motorsport industry are the same. Yeah. Well, I do. I think I'm just asking your opinion on it. Yes. It's bullshit. Well, I mean, I've got an investment property at Bathurst. Yeah. In my super, and in my contract, it actually stipulates that there's a noise. Like, I can't complain about the noise. Yeah, right. So in my contract of my property in Bathurst, says there's a racetrack there and tough shit.
And that's what should happen with the Wakefield properties, I'd say. Well, I've heard through the grapevine that it's only like literally one property.
You know? I've heard that too. And if one property ruins an economy of a town, anyway, it's a political discussion. It's probably not one that.
Oh, it's all right.
We can get into everyone in motorsport is all on the same thought pattern.
Yeah. Well, I'll do a segue here. You were huge into the Winton 300 type of racing. Is that what got you into the whole co-driver endurance stuff before the Bathurst, or like after? Did that continue? Did that want to make you continue in endurance racing, the Winton 300? Like, did that make you enjoy endurance racing from a state level?
Well, I just love driving cars. Yeah. You know, and you go do endurance racing, you get heaps of seat time. Yeah. So endurance racing in general is just you know, and you know what I really loved, like that 25-hour spa race. I did a 2-hour 47-minute stint in a car.
Yeah.
You know, and the mental concentration to make sure you hit every apex, you know, lap after lap, consistency laps, you know, that I love that stuff, you know.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to be the fastest guy because, like I said, I'm not the best on a new tyre, which probably hurt me in the 86 series. You know, I mean, I was always a little bit further back in the field because everybody's so freaking good.
Yeah.
You know, that's a really good series for teaching people, you know, how to qualify a car, how to get the maximum out of a new tyre. You know.
Yeah. You've sold those cars, haven't you? Or
yeah.
Did one get right off or one get? No, you still got them all.
I sold 3 cars.
Yeah.
And the truck. So I made a decision that so when I sold the workshop, I brought the lease cars back home, and you know, I got a big shed and hoist and everything, and I just was doing the leasing from home. I got rid of the mechanical shop, and then you know, I just ended up doing a lot of work on the cars. So, but what came from that was I'd get to the weekend. I mean, I'd bring the boys in for the big work, gearboxes, engines, all that sort of stuff. But all the setup stuff and all that, I do all the patching and everything. And you know, I was working my butt off. I wasn't doing enough work on the property stuff, and I was doing shitloads on the cars.
Yeah.
And the cars aren't generating me income, and I'm not growing the property business. So it's like, and I'd get to the racetrack, and I was freaking over it. I'd just get there, and I'd literally just sit down once everything was done. And, you know, we're well structured when we get to the track. I've got a team manager, I've got a data engineer, I've got, you know, a lead mechanic on every car, a secondary mechanic across either 2 cars or on each car. You know, so structurally we were always well set up on the weekends, but I had to work my butt off during the weeks to get the cars there. And, it took a lot of toll on me personally in terms of my enjoyment level. You know, I got to the weekends and I just sit down and I stopped developing my cars during the race weekend. I stopped, you know.
The passion had gone.
The passion had gone, but even the desire to chase setup, you know, like, we're just a smidge off. It's like, fuck it, she'll do.
Yeah.
Just let's go drive it, you know. Yeah. I just, you know, because I was so buggered from all the work, you know, so me getting out of the 86s was, you know what, I need to go back a step and go back to just enjoying cars.
Yeah, where'd you finish in champion? Was it top? It was 5th, wasn't it, or something like that?
The first year we finished 3rd.
Yeah.
The second year we had a contentious issue at Bathurst, and I think I didn't go to the final round because there was
bit of politics going on.
And we got fined and charged for incorrectly, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I actually got my data engineer to do a full report. I was going to hand to the thing. We got screwed.
Yeah. You just weren't happy with the call.
And you know what? If we had been involved in something in that final round, we would have been hammered, like stupid hammered. So I just went, you know what? I just don't need it.
Yeah.
So we didn't. So the second year we didn't do the whole thing, and then the third year that I did it, we were actually running 3rd in the championship. We would have finished 3rd, but then Brooksy bloody binned it at Newcastle.
Yeah.
My mate Brooksy.
Yeah. Tim did really well over the weekend, didn't he?
Yeah, mate, that guy can steer.
Yeah.
So, well, but he works freaking hard. You know how I said that I just wasn't willing to develop the car I was tired?
Yeah.
Mate, Brooksy and his boys, they earn every position they get. Yeah. Those guys work harder than anybody I've ever seen on any cars. At any team I've ever been to, one car.
Does Cutsy still come to all his races? Yep. Yeah, right. So he's loyal like you. He's actually got a similar format. Yep. You know, we're both in real estate, but you got a similar format.
Yep.
So you guys have built a really strong relationship over the year, like friendship and whatnot. And
I sponsored Brooksy into a bit of it.
Yeah, okay.
So we supported Brooksy's first full year in V's.
Yep.
And we supported Brooksy's first full years in 86.
Yeah, okay.
Which, you know, we weren't the only ones, but we helped that step to you know, go back yourself, have a go.
Yeah. And you when you were kind of getting over your racing career, you were leasing out cars. How did that all begin and start?
Well, the V's. I mean, I had the mini challenge car, and we still had Targa, so I couldn't do every round. So when we were at Targa Tasmania, I actually lent the car, my mini challenge car, to Butcher.
Yeah.
And he was so scared because he didn't have money to fix it that he didn't want to crash it, so he hung at the back.
Yeah.
And then Matty McKeldin ran into him.
Yeah,
damaged the car, so he didn't have the money to fix it. So I said, "Well, just give me another Formula V, build me another V."
Yeah.
So I ended up with 2 Vs, and then another guy was getting out, and then I bought his car cheap, so I had 3 Vs, and it was like, well, let's start leasing the cars.
Yeah.
And then you know, one thing led to the next, and then we had the workshop, and then we built up another couple of Evos because we were doing the Evo thing, and
how many cars at one point? What was the max point for you in the shop? How many cars can you remember for? For me, from memory, I think you'd probably have about 8 or 7 cars.
I think
just from memory. More than that?
Yeah.
You had more than that?
Yeah, well, we had 3 Vs. I think at one point we had 4 Evos. We had 3 9s and a 10.
Yep.
I had the Daytona, and then there was a changeover period when we had the 86s, and I think we had 2 pretty quickly because we were already set up to be doing leasing.
Yeah.
And the leasing was quite good if I had stayed a bit smaller, it probably would have kept my enthusiasm a bit better.
Yeah.
But because if you take 2 cars, it actually reduces your cost of racing significantly.
Yeah.
Because the second car, the hotel room, I only need I've already got a team manager. He can run 2 cars, not just mine. I've already got a data engineer. He can run 2 cars, not just mine.
Yeah.
I've got a lead mechanic and a secondary mechanic on my car. I only need to put another lead mechanic on. So I've only got 1 extra guy to run 2 cars.
Yeah.
The secondary mechanic can run across 2 cars.
Yeah.
So what it cost me 1 extra guy.
Yep.
So that's not bugger all extra. I'm getting an Airbnb house anyway because we've got enough crew.
Yeah.
So it's not accommodation's not that much more, food's not that much more.
Yeah.
And then so it's just the entry and the tires and the time to prep. Yep. And I was doing a lot of that myself, so I'm saving them. I'm not paying. I'm doing it. So the cost to run a second car was not very high. So therefore, that subsidised a lot of my racing. So a lot of my leasing was around me benefiting. How do I get the most cost effectiveness out of my racing?
Yeah, and you actually built a good relationship with one of the guys who leased your car, Jacob Andrews. Was it Jacob? He started in V's and he eventually got to production cars. But yeah. So how's your friendship with him? Like you said off air that you'd do anything for that family. Like,
mate, but they're just good people. I haven't, I don't have a relationship with them off, today.
Yeah.
But in saying that, I rang his dad, Tim Andrews. I don't know, probably late last year. Just said, I think his birthday came up on my Facebook feed.
Yeah, okay.
Tim Andrews' birthday. I just rang him and said, "Hey mate, happy birthday! How you going?" Good family. I asked him because Jacob ended up going over to do a mechanical engineering degree in England.
Yep.
And he did some mini challenge in England in the
I wonder where he went.
Yeah. So he went and did some of that stuff over there, and so they continue to do stuff, and just a great family. It's with the leasing stuff. I've worked with a lot of really, really good people, and I could probably name a dozen, but I don't want to because
you've mentored William Pym, and Pimmy's a good character.
Oh, Pimmy's a character, that's for sure. But like Will Couchy from Newcastle, a good guy. Like I say, I don't want to start naming people because then I'm going to forget people. So I don't actually want to go down the road of naming people, but I've also been burnt as well.
Yeah.
So on the flip side, there's been times where I make a good deal. I try and make a cost-effective racing when I'm leasing.
Yeah, you try to be as nice as possible because it's a business.
Well, it's a hobby business. It's not my primary source of income.
Yeah.
So it's a hobby business. So so I'm not, like the Sonics, who run a really good ship, wall racing. Any of the big teams. They've got bigger overheads. They've got B doubles. They've got workshop space. We had our workshop as well, but again, it was a road car workshop as well. So it had multiple sources of income. I got rid of that because of the road car side. Some staff wanted to go start their own stuff. I didn't have enough staff.
So that's all gone now, is it? The whole thing?
It just wasn't worth the headache to me.
Yeah.
I was putting way too much time into all of that stuff. And it's not generating me personal income.
Yeah.
Yes, I was writing off a lot of my racing expenses through there.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. I wasn't getting ahead with it, and I wasn't putting any focus onto the property stuff.
Yeah.
And
and with the property stuff, as you're involved in now, you're not actually, people know you for the CXC thing, but that's that's your dad's company, isn't it? So what's the whole backstory to that?
So CXC Global is a contractor management company. It does salary packaging and payroll for contractors.
Yep.
Globally.
Yeah.
So that's my dad's company. It was my dad's company. He started it in the mid-90s. And grew it into a very decent sized company that is global.
Yeah.
So my sponsorships always come from there. A lot of it, and he's now retired, so he's no longer in there. I think he still has a chair in the boardroom, but he's no longer involved in the business at all. He's effectively sold out.
Yeah.
I still retain some sponsorship, which is great for me.
Yeah.
But I also I think I do a great job in promoting that brand, and a lot of sponsorships are about brand awareness. You know, there's plenty of people who know CXC Global because of a symbol on the side of the car.
Well, a lot of people would know outside of the national stuff, you know, like the Porsche. It was on the Porsche, so that would have got the company a fair bit of exposure.
Yeah, well, and the Porsche one at that
time. Yeah. So with you, obviously focusing on your son's career right now, are you using any of your mental strength to get him prepared to move up to the next, like each level he goes in motocross? Is there any resemblance that you use at all?
Do you know what? Like, I'm not pushing my kid to be anything.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't mean for him to get into motocross and competitive the way he did.
Yeah.
You know, I think for his 6th birthday, I bought him a little TTR, and
yeah,
you know, he's doing little burnouts with training wheels on it, and you know, and then it's like, oh well, where do you ride these bloody things? You know, I didn't know much about the motocross scene.
Yeah.
I've always been a bit of a bush rider. I've done a lot of the trans motos, and so I mean, I've always gone okay on a bike, but it's always, you know, bush enduro sort of stuff. Yeah. Not motocross, and so
when did you buy your first bike? Like your first bike to just have fun before your son got into it?
Well, I had a Pee-wee 50 when I was a kid.
Yep.
And then when I was probably late teens, I ended up with a YZ125.
Yep.
And yeah, we used to go up to like Mile Lakes and Wadigans and all that sort of stuff, and I rode there, and then didn't have a bike for a while. Went travelled, and then really sort of got into a lot more riding, probably like, you know, mid to, you know, early to mid 20s.
Yeah. Is there there's photos of here on the internet. I don't really normally use much of the internet here on Facebook, but you've actually like driven 2-stroke karts as well as the 4-stroke stuff. Do you remember much of that time at all? Have you done? Do you remember much? This is completely off topic, but have you gone?
No, I haven't really done. I don't.
Do you remember
2-stroke kart I've ever done?
Oh, 2-stroke. So that was
my nephew.
That was your nephew.
Oh, yeah, my nephew. So we sponsored my nephew in a go-kart racing, and he went actually pretty good. I think he got a lap record. Like, he was really good at Eastern Creek. I think he struggled a little bit more traveling, but yeah, my nephew did a lot of go-karting for about 4, 5, 6 years.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yep.
So I mean, we've actually supported a lot of karters over the years. You know, I've always been taught that you need to give back.
Yeah.
You know, so I've always, I mean, in fact, when I got the high-tech deal, you know, I had a mate of mine wanting me to sponsor his kid for some go-karts, for some tires and stuff, and at that point, I didn't have enough budget for me to go racing.
Yeah.
And I was pedaling a bit, and yeah, you know, I ended up making a deal to give him a whole bunch of tires during the course of the year. And you know, as I made that deal, I think it was the very next day, I'd been working on high-tech oils for a sponsor.
Yep.
For about 18 months, and high-tech rang me the next day and said, "All right, well, let's do it as a deal."
What year was that? Do you remember?
So I had them for, it must be about 5 or 6 years ago now. So like a 16-ish.
Yeah. Okay. 2016.
16, 17, somewhere around there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right. And you've helped, as you said, you helped many drivers, and you had Cody Brzezinski in your car, and not in just your V, you've had him in your Lancer as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, we supported them. So his dad runs Hornsby Diff.
Yep.
So he's always done some work for us. Really good guy, you know, hardworking, you know.
Yeah.
Aussie.
Yeah, just very laid back, loves cars.
And, you know, just a great family. And, you know, so his kid at that time when we first started doing some business together was, you know, going to I think Italy to represent Australia in the World Karting.
Yep.
You know, and they were trying to get some funds together. So, you know, so we said, all right, no worries. And I think we paid their trip over, paid their flights over, and over that we then started to develop. I can't remember what else. We did a number of supporting things for the next few years. And then, I've chucked Cody in Formula Vs and Evos, and, you know, he's had drives on my 86. And
yeah, right.
Yeah, so, I mean, like, but again, like I say, you got to give back. I'm a big believer you need to give back.
Yep. Is there any, I ask this normally on this podcast, but why the number 68? Is there any reason behind the 68, or is it just you're just deciding, oh fuck it, that was the number that was on that car before I was on 68?
Yes, a bit of both.
Bit of both. Okay.
So that little 1200 that I bought way back when.
Yep.
So my number's actually 27. If you noticed when I picked you, oh no, it wasn't in my car.
Yep.
My number plate says Dill 027.
Okay.
So my number was 27.
Yep.
For no other, actually. Long story behind that too. I was a hooker in rugby, number 2.
Yep.
But I really liked number 7. But everybody liked number 7 back in the day, so I didn't want to be number 7 because everyone likes 7.
Yeah.
So I went, well, I'm hooker, 27. That's how I came at 27. But
so that wasn't Ent and Centre related. That was just you just between the two?
Just like number 7, lucky 7, and yeah, my rugby days.
Yeah.
So and that's how 27 came. But then I couldn't get 27 because another competitor had it. I actually tried to buy it off Simon Duffy.
Yeah. Okay.
But he wouldn't relinquish it. And so the car that I bought had 68 on it. So I just ran 68. Yeah. And then when I went to the 1600s, I was like, I again tried to get number 27 and I couldn't get it and blah, blah, blah. And then I went, oh, well, I'll run number 10. And it was arrogance, because I dominated the 1200s. Yeah. And I went, well, I'll run the 10 and when I get to the end of the year, we'll rip the 0 off and the 1 will be there.
Yeah, okay.
And it was shit. We had a horrible run. Like, it just like, we could do nothing right. And then about 2/3 of the way through the year, I went, fuck it, let's go back to the old number. Yeah. We put 68 back on and we were on the podium for the rest of the year.
Yeah, okay.
And that's how it stuck.
Yeah, right. It's kind of like me with the number 40.
Yeah,
I just stuck with it.
It just worked well for me and I stuck with it. And in fact, I now live at number 68 in my house. Yeah. Our race workshop was 86 and then we got into the 86. It was just, it's uncanny how numbers can be, really consistent once you have it.
Yeah. Is there any advice that you'd give, because you're more of like an AM driver, but you've got pro skills, that you could give an AM driver to get into car racing? Like how to go about it? Like, as you said before, the V's type of thing, or just, is there a way is there any advice you'd give to like a race car driver listening?
Well,
it doesn't have to be cliche.
Seat time. Like if you want to be good at anything, you need to do regular. I mean, like watching my son with the motocross, all the kids that are good are on the bikes a lot. Yeah. And it's no, like all the go-karters that are good are in the go-karts a lot. Yeah. What's the difference? What's the difference between a kid developing and growing up, getting lots of seat time in what they're doing? Yeah. And, an AM guy, like let's say you got, a 50-year-old guy that wants to jump in and start getting into motor racing. Shahin, here's an example. He got in, from no background and, contentiously just won a national title. Yeah.
That was quite interesting, wasn't it?
Unfortunately for Jeff Emery, you can't beat Motorsport Australia, even if you're right. I've been down that road and I spent a lot of money fighting the unlosable case and I lost. So
I thought that was a clean pass in my opinion.
Oh, that was 100% clean pass. Anyway, that's
ridiculous.
So Jeff, but
we'll both get in trouble by that.
Oh, whatever. You know what? Like that one, I don't care. That's clean as. Anyway, but still, Shaheen. Yeah. Legit or not legit on that pass, he was in a position to win a national title for AM. Yeah. So there's a guy, I think he stated that he was like, mid to late 50s when he started racing. Yeah. And what's he done? Yeah. Heaps of laps. Yeah. Heaps of laps. He, do like, I mean, you said off air, that you've got Bart doing a bit of mentoring with you and a bit of driver training. Yep. Get someone like that to work with you because if you've got somebody working with you, they're going to teach you about understeer, oversteer, ride height. What's the car doing? Where does it feel? Is it entry, mid, or exit? Yeah. Because when you start off and if you're an AM guy, you don't know anything about what the car's doing. No. Oh, I'm not fast enough. I'll just drive faster. Yeah. You're already driving as fast as you can, dickhead. Yeah. Like, how do you make the thing go faster? Well, make the car respond. Yeah. What's it doing? Well, I don't know. Well, let's work out what it's doing. Let's speak to somebody. Let's look at some video. Oh, well, I think it's oversteer. Well, actually, if you look at it, it's actually understeer because you got like your steering wheel like this and then it bites and then it's got oversteer. Yeah. But, if you're just going off yourself and you don't know what you're doing, you're going, I've got an oversteery car. You're just trying to make it more understeery. Yeah. But really the oversteer is generated by understeer. Yeah. Because you got your wheel and then it bites. Yeah. So get somebody who's got some experience and can give you some guidance. Look at some of your video.
Don't just come in and buy a shitload of cars and hope for the best.
No, well,
it's a bit hard that way though. You know what I mean? Like you got to, as you said, you got to be grounded to go there. It doesn't matter how many, whatever you buy. You just, as you said, it's all about seat time. Just get the guidance behind you and then drive the cars.
Yeah. I mean, and as you said, don't just buy a shitload of cars. You could buy the best car in the world. You could go buy a 888 supercar and mate, in 3 rounds that thing's shit. Yeah. Because it hasn't been developed. Life in the parts is out. Yeah. Like you need to stay on top of cars. Yeah. I mean, the amount of state level guys that'll do a race meeting, put the car in the trailer, put it in the shed, come to the next race meeting, they pull it out and they go, oh, my car's still shit. Well, you haven't done anything since last round. Yeah. Of course it's still shit. Yeah, you haven't done anything.
You haven't rebuilt the engine or something.
Yeah. It's still got all the loose rose joints on it. Like, Yeah. You've still got a blown out, front ball joint and the thing's flapping around. Like, Yeah. Yeah. So look at your car, prep your car, get some advice. Yeah. Look at some video, look at some data.
Yeah, we've spoken about your career highlights, but do you remember many of your career highlights that made you just want to, before you got bored of the sport? What was it? What was the times like your highlights of your career that you're like, fuck yeah, I just want to do another year? Do you know what I mean? Like,
I've never said I don't want to do. Like even when I got a little bit over it, it was I still wanted to race. Like so, I mean, in fact, last year I was actually going to have last year off.
Yeah.
But then I think about a month after that decision, I mean, I sold everything.
Yeah.
Well, not everything. I still got it.
You still got some stuff. Yeah.
I sold the 86s, was what we were competing in at the time, in the truck. And then I'm like, let's just see what Trans Ams are out there.
Yeah. And
then we bought the Trans Am, and then it's like, well, we're not going to run the series, but we'll just go do the next round and see what it's like.
Yeah.
And then we did every single one of them.
Yeah.
So
how did you find going? Like, I would love, as I said to you, like I'd love to leave and lease your Trans Am at one point.
Yeah, we can have a chat.
Yeah. But what do you think about the whole Trans Am series? Because now it's literally like the like national series of everyone pretty much entering now these days.
Yeah. Well, mate, the cars are great. They're I mean, the running costs on them are fantastic. I mean, they're a little bit pricey to buy, but no more so than anything that is at that level.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, 86s are really cheap, so it's really affordable for people to get into.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Trans Ams or the TA2, Peter Robson's done a fantastic job with what he's done, bringing those things in, making the field quite level.
Yeah.
I mean, my car's 4 years old, and I don't think my engine's any worse than it was, back when it came.
Who'd you buy it off?
So I bought mine through Melbourne Performance Centre.
Yep. Okay.
Which was, John McLaughlin's old car.
Yep.
Steve McLaughlin's old car.
Steve McLaughlin.
And I mean, my car's a good car.
Yeah.
I've got in my mind that I'm going to give it a fresh motor. Obviously, we busted the collarbone, so we didn't make the first round. So we didn't go to Taz, but we'll go do the TA2 championship this year. And to be honest with you, that's actually probably a good thing for me this year. It's my son's senior year in the junior class, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
So to give him the time this year, for me to go play TA2, a little bit less pressure. It's actually probably maybe a little bit more fun, probably run a bit more at the pointy end, because it's pretty serious at the Trans Am at the moment. I saw what was going on down in Tassie. Yeah. I was actually glad I wasn't there, because I haven't done any testing. I didn't know where my shoulder was at. There was a big risk for me to go. It's a big, even next weekend, this weekend, we're running TA2.
Yep.
I don't even know how my shoulder's going to hold up. Yeah. So, the Hans device pulls directly down on the collarbone. So, how's that G-force going to work?
In a way, the Trans Am and the TA2 have created their own different sanctioned events, but it's kind of like a Super 2 and a supercars at the moment to get your bearings right.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt Trans Am is the more premier category of the two.
Yeah.
But you know what? Like I said, for me this year, it's actually probably a nice thing to go to a slightly less pressure of the TA2.
Yeah.
And just maybe go and have some fun there, and I will jump into a couple of Trans Am rounds at some point. So we'll certainly do the Bathurst International, because and with TA2 we get to go to Tail and Bend, and those cars around Tail and Bend will be pretty sick. Those 4 sweeping rights will be pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
I normally throw in a random question at the end of the podcast, but this one, I'll say what I've said to Bart. If you were the CEO of Motorsport Australia for a day, what's the one thing you would change in the sport? You can change multiple if you want.
Oh, less categories.
Less categories. Yeah, okay.
Less categories.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of the things that I think Motorsport Australia is really bad at. I mean, they do a lot of things. Let me just keep my opinions. The one thing that Motorsport Australia is really bad at is they keep bringing new categories in, but there's nothing dying off.
Yeah.
Now, the motorsport pool, the competitors, is one size.
Yeah.
The more categories we bring in, the more we're spreading it out.
Yep.
And then you get to different race meetings, and look at Formula 3. Formula 3 is a fantastic category, and we're getting 6, 8 people.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's like
and
then
we've got S5000.
S5000.
Yeah,
and then we haven't got enough.
Yeah,
it's what have we got? 10 people at Taz.
Yeah, you could split the two, and you could bring the two together.
I didn't even look at the results of S5000.
There was 9 cars that weekend.
Yeah, see, I didn't even look. Like it hasn't got enough to keep me interested. Like now, TCR is not really my thing.
Yeah,
like I'm not a front wheel drive, that type of car.
Yeah, you're not a Josh Buchan.
No, but in saying it, there's really good caliber people there, and there's 20 plus cars. So you know what? I will tune in just to see what's going on. I'm still a motorsport enthusiast. So TCR has got an appeal.
Yeah.
Even though it's not my sort of car, you know, there's still that racing in there. There's a good. It's a solid field. You know, everybody.
It's competitive.
Everybody who's in there can pedal.
Yeah.
I'm not in favour of categories where you got balance of performance because there's always someone that's going to get screwed.
Yeah.
You know, so that's another thing I don't like about TCR.
Yeah.
But then you're saying that you almost need to do it.
Yeah.
You know, otherwise the field spread's too great.
Yeah.
But you know, the lap times there. So to answer the question, we've got too many categories. There's always new categories coming in, and we're not killing off the old ones.
Yeah.
Now, being an advocate for Formula V, you know, and I was president there for 12 odd years. You know, I don't want to kill off the old categories because there's value there.
Yeah,
but
they've got big fields, so they should stay there.
Yeah,
same with Fords. Fords are still just going strong.
What? Like all you need to do is look at. I mean, but you know what? Trans Am has come in, TA2's come in, and look how successful it is.
Yeah.
So you go, well, how can you not bring these categories in? Because some of these categories are fantastic. But you know, Formula 4 wasn't.
I know, that's what I was going to bring up.
There was political reason behind it.
Yeah. How do you reckon that could have worked, though?
It couldn't have. Not in Australia.
No, it was never going to work.
We're not an open wheel country.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I love my open wheels.
Same here. Yeah.
But we're not an open wheel country. You look at the motorsport landscape, we're not. So in open wheelers, in my opinion, you need your cheap entry level, Formula V.
Yep.
Then you need your national stuff like Formula Ford. I mean, like, how well did Formula Ford prove itself as a development thing for guys that wanted to go places?
Yeah.
You know, and then you need like your premier class, which was Formula 3, which is relevant because it's relevant to going to Formula 3 in Europe.
Yeah.
You know, we can move across. And that's what they try to do with Formula 4.
Yeah.
Because it's relevant over in Europe. But you try to replace it with Formula Ford, and Formula Ford already has its place here.
Yeah.
So Formula Ford doesn't fit into our landscape, in my opinion, and didn't. Well, obviously, it didn't. It fell over. So, I mean, I drove one. I drove one of the AGP.
Yeah. How'd you find that? Did you find it very was it like a car, or was it like a tin top?
No, dude, it was just the braking. I struggled under the braking, but again, I never did a proper test day.
Yeah, you just hopped in there. I just
hopped in, and you know what? Like, you know. Yeah. You know what? There's a bunch of things that if I look back on, I go, you know what? I should have done that properly. Yeah. I could have done that so much better.
I could have got a better result out of this.
I could have, you know, and it would have made my experience better as well. But you know what? The opportunity came to drive an F4 around the AGP. Like,
who wouldn't say no to that? Yeah, I would have said yes to it.
There was the original deal was a pretty good deal, and clearly, like everything in motorsport, it cost more than the original plan was.
Yeah, you said the invoice afterwards, and the same as was.
Well, they just gave us the car. We ran the car.
Yeah, okay.
So, and again, you know, and I'm like trying to ask people, what tyre pressure did you run at this? Something between 5 and 100. I went, okay, thanks for the help. You know, I mean, like everyone was real close shop. No one wanted to give us information, so we were really. In fact, the first practice session, I went, fuck it, wings flat.
Yeah.
And everyone's looking at me, and everyone's got all this like wing angle on the rear, and I've got this flat wing, and I went, no drag, let's go.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know. Yeah. Clearly, we weren't.
I want to
go
fast. I'm just going to turn the wing that way. Yeah.
So yeah. But again, it was, you know, we didn't take it that seriously. We just went for the experience. And you know, we had grandstand tickets as well at the Formula 1. So we were.
You're rolling in the way.
Half in the stands, half in the, you know, like
you're just
normally when you're at a race weekend, you're all on the car.
Yeah. Yeah. But for you, so you're going back to that running as a CEO for the day. What kind of classes would you wind down to? You've mentioned Vs, Fords. We could have like a mixture of Formula 3 and S5000 here mixed into one in a way. Yep. That could kind of be the thing that could go to Europe. Then for the tin tops, what would you have? Because in New Zealand, they have like 8 categories, and that's how they churn through their drivers. Do you know what I mean? Like that's how they produce so many good drivers.
Tin tops, I mean, obviously 86s have clearly got a great little package going, and they're really competitive. So that teaches you good. So I actually don't mind what's going on with the top end.
Yeah.
You know, so you've got supercars. Let's work backwards. You've got supercars, which is our top category.
Yep.
So you've got
that one
Div 2 and Div 3.
Yep.
You know, so that progression is quite good. The cost for Div 2 needs to come down. Yep. It's massively unachievable. And I think you had John McCorkindale on talking about that in one of your podcasts.
He had to go. He had to leave it. It's too expensive for him.
It needs to come down. I mean, and that's part of what Gen 3 is about and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I mean, and motorsport's expensive. But, so I quite like the fact that the old cars can go here and then they can go here. So, you know, Div 2 and Div 3 I like. That's fine. Porsche's got its own little thing with its European thing to go overseas and whatever. So the Porsche program really works. So at the top end of town, I think we're actually pretty good.
Yep.
86s is pretty good.
Yep. So that's 5.
Yep. So that's all quite good. it's what happens below that. You know, obviously, prod cars is very successful.
Yeah.
The bit that that hurts prod cars, in my opinion, is there's too many different factors. You've got the 6 hour run their own show. You got Queensland production cars. You got New South Wales production cars. You got the ARMS. New South Wales production cars.
So there needs to be a body for the production cars.
Well, there was, and they try to make it all one, but it's just
there you goes.
So something happened and it became really successful, and everybody goes, "I need a bit of that. We can do this. We can do it better. We can do it better. We can do it better." And now we've got 5 different production cars.
Yeah.
No, why don't we just have production cars, state level and national level? That's it.
Yeah.
You know, like, why do we need to have all these different things? And then, you know, and obviously, you know, between Motorsport Australia and AASA, there's a little bit like when Super League came into rugby league. You got 2 sanctioning bodies, and both want to have their pie in it, so they both need to have their things.
And their own rules and whatnot. Yeah.
That's right. And you know what? And, you know, with my competitors hat on, it doesn't matter whether I'm jumping on cams or whether I'm jumping on AASA, as long as I go get a race.
Yeah.
With my competitors hat on.
Yeah.
You know, and there's pros and cons to both, and I shan't go too much into it because, you know, everybody's got an opinion. But, but having that Super League style system where you got 2 different bodies, therefore you got more categories, because now we need to run our championship and you need to run yours, so there's 2 of the same. Yeah. Copy paste. Yeah. So so we got too many categories.
So you'd have prods.
I don't have an answer, which is I mean.
Oh, we can go through it.
Motorsport Australia don't have an answer. Yeah. But maybe the answer is if a category gets below a certain number, it gets combined with something. You know, if a category gets below a certain number for a certain period of time, then it needs to be combined.
Yeah, and if the entries at like S5000 or whatever, or Formula 4, for example, get 9 entries or whatever, it shouldn't count as in my opinion, it
shouldn't be Gold Star.
No.
Not with 10 entries. It shouldn't be Gold Star.
It's got to be exactly right. I think it's got to be at least 15 entries max.
But in saying it, where do we put Gold Star?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, at the end of the day, Formula 4 shouldn't be Gold Star either, because you got kids.
Yeah.
You know, it's a development category. It's not. I mean, you're always going to have your seasoned competitors, but it's technically it's still a development category. Yeah. So and same with Formula V. Formula V is entry level. So you got, you know, so to have your Gold Star, it has to be at the higher end. Yeah. So your higher end is Formula 3 and S5000. Yeah. But you can't do it if you've only got 10 competitors or less. Yeah. If you're in single digit competitors, it shouldn't be a Gold Star. And, you know, not to take away from, you know, the Tim Macros, the Mawsons and all those guys that are having a crack at it to get the Gold Star, because the caliber's not lacking. Yeah. It's just the competition.
I think it's the competition, and just as many competitors have probably said, just the expensive S5000 as well. It's like supercars. Do you know what I mean? Like, they probably could get more entries, but it's just buying you know, open wheelers are just expensive, as you know.
Do you know what? Like you look at American motorsport and there's a give back. Yep. Why can't our top categories have a give back?
Like a purse. Like in NASCAR. Yeah. Like today
mate, like the truck series in America, the truck series. I mean, I don't watch a lot of the American stuff. Yeah. Mate, I just, you know, don't have the time. But, you know, even their lower levels, like, I mean, obviously I'm in the motocross with my son, and I listen to a lot of the motocross podcasts. You know, they have fair days. So they've got like a showground, and they'll do a showground race, and they're paying a purse at a showground race to the motocross guys.
Yeah, right.
You know, so there's a lot of guys in America on motocross, and this is motocross. Like,
this is what I was trying to get at
club level motocross. You know, that are making money. Yep. You know, they're making a living barely. Yeah. But they're getting some return for the going out. Why can't we have that at our top level? Yeah. You know, okay, I understand that, you know, people, you know, it's a business. People want to make money. Yeah. You know, I mean, this ARG thing with Stan Sport. Yeah. Oh, we're going to Stan because it's in the best interest of growing the sport. Yeah. Bullshit. Yeah. $20 million.
Yeah.
You know, like.
You got to pay, by the way, an extra $10 subscription to watch Stan Sport. I didn't find that out until I actually did that, just to support motorsport.
So, but again, like, okay, so ARG now just got $20 million in over 4 years. Yeah. Why can't they give S5000 a purse? Yeah. If you give them a purse, instead of having 9 competitors, you're going to have 20 competitors, 25. Yeah. They've just got the money in. Yeah. Put it back into the sport.
Where does it go?
Like, you think about any big business. What are they? Why is big business big business? Yeah, because they reinvest the money.
Yeah, you'd know, because you're doing property investment type of stuff.
Yeah, well, if I don't reinvest into a property, it's just going to dilapidate, and its value is going to decline. Yeah. Well, actually, property's still going to go up. Yeah. But comparatively, to get out and to put it into something else, it's going to be, it's going to decline.
That's my main vocal point too, though. I think Australia definitely needs to have some sort of money back scheme to try and work the competitors to keep the fields big.
Supercars with their new deal, they've got that a little bit. I mean, they've always got a bit of money back from the TV rights, but now it's a set number. Yeah. Their new deal is a set number they get every year. Yeah. So at least they've got, okay, we're going to get this much in. So we need to get the balance in from this sponsorship or manufacturer, not likely, but whatever. Yeah. But why can't ARG do that with, I mean, it doesn't need to with Trans Am at the moment because it's freaking killing it for numbers.
I know.
But with S5000, you want to make that the gold star? You want to make that a big category?
Yeah. Put some coin on that one. Yeah, 100%. Totally agree. Yeah.
So anyway, it's easy to sit here and give them the answers, but I know the bean counters in the back office are probably not saying that. But because in saying it, the bean counters probably going, well, hang on, we just put $20 million into supercars. Yeah. So we need to this 20 is going from here to here. Yeah. But they're not reinvesting back in their product.
Yeah. So the difference between us, Australia and America, for example, which I researched today, Bush Beer is now putting $100,000 in, or I think $100,000 or $1 million a year into getting 10 girls integrated into their championships. I think what Australia needs to do with their motorsport is get more sponsors on board, and then that can also help pay the purse. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm getting at?
Absolutely.
So if they focus more on, I get the TV rights, like that's never going to change. But in terms of getting more people to get a purse is what we've spoken on. If they entice, which they've got the marketing team to do it, more sponsors, maybe down the trickle of the line, like in what you've said with your son, the more sponsors we get in our sport, it can actually pay us off, and Motorsport Australia can keep their money. Do you know what I mean?
Well, if they so if you put a purse on to S5000, so we're just saying one category.
Yeah.
If you put a purse on there, the entry fees are like $3,000. I don't even know what they are for S5000, but let's say they're $3,000. If you get an extra 10 grand, 10 competitors at $3,000, there's another $30,000.
Yeah.
So if you've got a purse on of $30,000 per round, your competitor numbers are going to boost to actually pay itself anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it can go on forever.
Yeah. So I mean, like you and I sitting here ain't going to fix the problem.
No.
So because there's been plenty of people that have had an opinion and shared that opinion.
Yeah.
Directly to Motorsport Australia.
Yeah.
Or CAMS back in the day.
I don't even know if Motorsport Australia listen to my podcast.
I don't think they listen to anybody. So, but I mean, you said it in one of your other podcasts. It's a $8-point-something billion industry.
$8.6 million industry. Billion, sorry. Yeah.
Billion dollar industry.
Billion industry. Yeah. And where does all the money go?
Someone's making coin somewhere.
Yeah.
I could make some other opinions, but I'm still involved in some areas, so I shall keep controversy aside.
Yeah. So what's your plans this year? You're just going to do 5 races and just focus on your son's career this year and going forward, or are you're just going to keep the Trans Am for a bit of fun and more so? Is that the future CX? Is that the future of CXC racing?
You know what? I've never been a guy to close the door on anything. Yeah. I'm open to any opportunity at any particular time, always.
Yeah.
And I mean, like last year we were doing a Trans Am round at Sydney Motorsport Park, and Mick Ritter had a guy in an 86 wanting to get some help. And they rang us up and they said, "Can you help?" And I rang the boys and said, "Hey, do we want to run another 86? Who's in?" If I could put the crew on to crew something, our guys do a great job. We've got a lot of experience structurally. We do a good job. We've always presented to be much bigger than what we really are.
Yeah.
We've always looked like we're a really big team. At certain times and. Yeah, professionalism is purely an image.
Yeah.
So we've never been as big as what people think we are.
Yeah.
But we actually do a really good job. We present good. Our cars. We always present our cars to go to win, and we always prepare our cars to go win.
Yeah.
Whether it be my car, I've never done anybody else's car any worse than my own.
Yeah.
And I don't care. Like if someone beats me, mate. When we had the prod cars with Houlihan, with Oosthuizens, mate.
Yeah.
Dan Oosthuizen used to beat me often. I'd be like, bloody bastard. But how good for my brand.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy could steer.
Those two kids actually. Jax can steer too.
Jax can steer too, yeah. There's nothing wrong with him going.
He was not interested in go-karts, by the way, and then he just hopped into your car.
Yeah, dude. And then those guys went good. I mean, and we unlocked some good potential in those Evos, and we sort of reverse engineered that thing a little bit through playing with stuff, and we actually stumbled over a little setup thing that we like that worked for us and the Evos. But anyway. So my plans this year is we'll probably do the TA2. I'll probably do a Trans Am round or two. If any other opportunities come, I mean, like I'd love for the Pro-Am to come back with these new Porsches. They look pretty sexy.
You were writing on Nick McBride's Facebook, or wasn't it? Give me a go if you can.
Yeah, give me a go.
Happy birthday, give me a go if you can.
Yeah, give me a go.
Yeah.
If McBride, if you're listening, we'll swap a drive of your of your Porsche from a Trans Am.
Yeah, give it a go. Switch it around.
Yep.
Yeah, well, dude, thanks for coming on the podcast. I had heaps of fun today because you actually got to pick me up and actually got to know each other better, which is 10 times better than I've ever had. Yeah. But dude, I really appreciate you coming on my podcast, and I'd love you to come on again some other time.
Oh, always.
Cheers.